Recording starts. Just started. Fine. Yeah. Hey everyone, welcome to Healthy Waves, the podcast where we dive into a topic that I believe isn't discussed nearly enough. I mean, what if we measured success not by our bank accounts or the promotions or the titles, but by our well being? What do you think? Right? What if this success wasn't just about the financial gain, but about our mental, emotional, and the physical health? Thinking about, right? So I see so many people, including high achievers, burning out, exhausted from chasing a corporate dream or the lifestyle that doesn't support their wellness. And yet, when we don't prioritize our health, we end up losing the very energy and vitality that we need to enjoy our success, right? So to help us unravel this conversation, I have a guest who truly understands this balance, Madison Sutan. So welcome to the show, Madison.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Lovely, lovely. So, Madison, like before we start, I'll quickly love to introduce you to all of our listeners. Dear listeners, Madison is a certified integrative health coach and functional diagnostic and nutrition practitioner. And also, she is on a mission to help high performing women reclaim their energy and the confidence without sacrificing their ambitions. So, after spending over a decade in the corporate world, Madison experienced firsthand like how stress and neglecting wellness can take a toll. But she turned that challenge into a purpose-driven career, helping others navigate their stress, hormone imbalances, and long-term health. So, Madison, welcome to the show, and I'm really excited to have you here today.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Lovely, lovely. So, I mean, your journey into the holistic health wasn't kind of a straight path. So, it was a kind of wake up call. So, you were thriving in high stress corporate career, pushing through through until your life and the body gave you signs that things needed to change. So if you can take us back to that moment, I mean, what made you realize that success without health wasn't really success at all?
Yeah, absolutely. My journey to my current role, and I guess where I am today, it's definitely not been linear. I feel like the universe has sort of been
Mhm.
trying to pull me in this direction for a long time, but it's taken several pushes to actually get me here. I was introduced into holistic health in my early 20s when a loved one experienced an autoimmune condition. So that really piqued my interest in understanding holistic health and using things like food as medicine, going for maybe supplements or herbs instead of pharmaceuticals. So I've had the knowledge there and the desire to learn and understand holistic health for a long time. However, I, like you said, was in that corporate role. And so many of us are in that. I think, my generation, your generation, we were very much pushed to go to school, go to college, get a job, and that would really give us everything that we needed in life. And I think that's something that really hasn't served us very well. The intentions behind it were really great, but I think just looking at the state of health right now, I think a lot of people took a path that maybe led to financial success, but not true happiness. And I think we're seeing that in the rising, healthcare issues that we are having. And where I saw it so much was in my friends who are, were in their late 20s, early 30s, hadn't had kids yet. and are already experiencing this severe burnout. So where this came through for me, I really loved my job. I had to listen to people all the time talk about how they didn't enjoy their job, how they didn't like what they were doing, but they were going to stick with it because it was the right financial decision, or they felt like they had committed to this path and they wanted to stick with it. That really wasn't the case for me. I really enjoyed my career. I worked for a startup that then was acquired by a big tech company.
Mm,
I ended up moving out to San Francisco, and I really threw my whole life into work. And it was rewarding in some ways, but
mhm,
even though I had that holistic background and that knowledge about holistic health, and that interest in taking care of my body, I was still starting to see signs that my health was declining.
mm,
And for me, that really surfaced in insomnia, not being able to sleep, and needing substances like coffee, to keep me running through the day, and then alcohol or some, even like prescription medication to fall asleep at night. And I started seeing this trend that I think most women see where they're gaining weight. They feel like all of the things that they're doing from a health perspective are not working, even though they feel like they are doing all the right things. And that's when you start to develop this mindset that your body's broken or something's wrong with you because you're eating right, you're exercising, but because you are so stressed out, you are starting to become less and less healthy. But nobody wants to admit that it's actually the stress that is making you less healthy, not necessarily the diet, or the lack of exercise.
mm,
So for me, this really came to a head when my father was diagnosed with cancer. I
mm,
was still at my corporate job, still not sleeping well, still working, pretty crazy hours, traveling, having to do a lot of customer facing presentations, presenting at conferences, things like that. And when he was diagnosed with cancer, I just hit a wall. I
mm,
think the combination of the stress from my job and my dad getting sick just really, that was it for me.
mm,
Um, I got pretty sick. Was, I was always a high performer in my career, but I just couldn't do it anymore. I wasn't able to join meetings. I was just completely burnt out of energy by 10 a.m. in the morning. And it was at that time I just knew like I can't do this anymore. Um, and now I know that my nervous system was just completely overloaded. I had just completely depleted all of my cortisol levels. My hormones were not where they needed to be. And I was really just overloaded with stress. So the past really 3 years now has been a journey for me to one, get my health back, and to build a business where I can support women that are going through a similar journey, that are feeling that stress, that are feeling like they know what they need to do with health, but just can't get there because of this high stress job that they have.
that's very true. I can totally understand. I can relate with this because um, it's very difficult when you are too much stressed and things which you do very well during stress period you won't be able to kind of deliver. So that's something it happens. Even I also face the same situation. So thanks for sharing this for all the listeners. So yeah. And 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 also on this, like I think that so many people listening, especially those juggling on the demanding careers, they can also relate to this idea of putting health on their back burner. But what you said, it's that ignoring those signals only leads to the burnout or the worse. Uh, so when you started prioritizing that wellness, uh, What were some of the biggest shifts that you noticed in your energy, mindset, and even your definition of the success?
Yeah, I think for me, we think about
Mhm.
chasing success or pushing harder for success, pushing harder to climb the corporate ladder.
Mhm.
And shortly after I moved back from San Francisco, I guess really immediately after I moved home after San Francisco,
Mhm.
instead of trying to chase those things, instead of raising my hand for every opportunity at work saying, "Hey, I volunteer for this task. Sure, I'll travel to this place. I'll do this project." I kind of just stopped. I
Mhm.
stopped losing sleep. I stopped waking up super early to get in that workout. I honestly just stopped. Um, I think because of the timing, it was nice for me to use that move as sort of an excuse. And I think I did use that as an excuse, or at least I told myself, hey, you moved back, you're adjusting, you're in a, you're back on the East Coast now. Let's just take a few weeks and take a step back. We're not going to work out in the morning. We're going to make sure that you get, 9 hours of sleep a night. We're going to cut out the alcohol. Let's just cook some simple meals instead of trying to be really fancy. I kind of actually stopped. Like, I just sort of stopped trying so hard to be healthy. And I stopped trying so hard to be number one at my job for the first time in probably 7 years.
Mhm.
And I felt so much better. Um, I was still doing really well at work. I was still performing. In fact, as soon as I got home, a few months later, I actually got like a really big raise. Um, but I think we associate doing well with always having to raise your hand, always having to volunteer. And part of me thinks this is a little bit, a part of me thinks part of it's because I'm a woman and I was working in a male dominated industry. I felt the need to prove my worth in every encounter. I felt like I needed to be the smartest person in every presentation, every conversation, because I was most of the time the youngest and I was almost always the only female. So I think I just stopped putting that pressure on myself. I stopped, I still prepared for meetings, but I didn't prepare for a meeting in the same way. I didn't go in thinking that I needed to be prepared for every single situation. And what if they ask this question? And what if they ask this question? I didn't come in just stressing myself out before the situation even took place. So for me, it looked like taking a step back, and the results were so immediate for me that it's really just become my way of life now. Instead of waking up and saying, okay, I need to do this, and I need to do this, and I need to do this in order to be successful. And I need to work out so that I lose weight, and I need to make sure I eat a well-balanced meal 3 times a day. It's less of that aggressiveness, and it's more of a waking up and saying, what do I need today?
Mhm.
What do I need today? Did I sleep good last night? Do I have a more stressful or busy day planned? If so, where can I make life a little bit easier on myself? So yeah, I think it was just like taking that pressure away from, just taking that pressure off of myself.
Exactly. And okay, so we live in a society that rewards hustle and constant productivity, and I believe this culture has got more eyes after COVID, right? So, but from what I mean, you have seen in both your journey and your work with the clients, what are the biggest ways that corporate culture is failing our health? I mean, how is it directly impacting the stress, hormone health, or even the long-term well-being? What do you say?
So I'm actually doing a presentation tomorrow, and a big thing that we're going to talk about is
Uh-huh.
this concept of HPA axis dysfunction. And in my world in FDN, so I'm a functional diagnostics and nutrition practitioner. And when we talk about cortisol, which is
Yeah.
the main stress hormone, we talk about it on this sort of graph.
Mhm.
And most people in high stress roles or that are
Mhm.
experiencing a lot of stress in their life, they get to this phase in HPA axis dysfunction, which is really what's, their adrenals and what's helping to actually create their cortisol and their hormones. They're at this phase where they are putting out a lot of cortisol in their body from a scientific perspective. And once your body starts to put out those higher levels of cortisol for an extended period of time, it shuts down other parts of your body. And, you know, having high cortisol as a stress response is a safety mechanism in our body. So being able to produce high cortisol when we need it is important. It is something that our body needs to produce when we are in one of those flight or fight situations. But very few of us are actually having to flee or fight people on a day-to-day basis.
Mhm.
Um, but what our body is now perceiving as stress are those customer-facing presentations or that
Mhm.
pressure that we're putting on ourselves to succeed at work. Um, it's really perceived stress that is causing us to have those cortisol levels rise. And what's happening is they are staying at that high level. And what that is causing is other things to shut off. Things like your insulin resistance
Mhm.
or your ability to balance your blood sugar levels. It's also cutting off things like your sex hormones. When
Mhm.
you're in a dire situation, you do not need to reproduce. So you don't need those things. It also shuts off your digestion and it can disrupt your circadian rhythm. So, from a physiological standpoint, so many of us are in this high cortisol place. And it is physically disrupting other areas of our body, specifically our ability to lose weight. So a lot of people are holding on to excess weight because of this. It's cutting off our ability to regulate and create our hormones like estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. A lot of men are struggling with low testosterone. A lot of women struggle with estrogen dominance, which is really just estrogen being higher than progesterone, which is something that, they're really supposed to counterbalance each other. So, from a more physiological perspective, that is what people are actually experiencing. And I think when a lot of people hit that burnout wall, it is this is not just a mental or emotional thing. This is not just a feeling that you are having. It is your body physically shutting down.
So, like also regarding the wellness, I love that because so often when people think about getting healthy, they assume that it means a complete lifestyle overhaul that feels kind of impossible to maintain. But you focus on sustainable wellness. So if you can talk about how people, especially busy professionals, can integrate health into their daily lives without kind of feeling overwhelmed.
Yeah. I think a lot of times with professionals, we like to do everything well. We like to do everything good. We like to, be maybe a little bit of that perfectionist tendency or control comes out in other aspects of our life. So I think what you can do if you're somebody that is really busy and knows you want to prioritize your health, but doesn't feel like you have the time. Get rid of the notion that you need to go to the gym for an hour for it to be successful. A lot of us will say, I don't have an hour to work out, so I'm not going to do it at all. Something I started to do every morning is what I call my lazy girl workout. And it is literally just 5 minutes of me stretching. And then it's 5 minutes of me doing simple squats, push-ups, some ab stuff, jumping jacks. And it doesn't take a lot of time at all. But just doing that simple 10-minute exercise in the morning is
Mhm.
more than most people do. And most people will not choose to exercise because they don't think they have the time. And that's why I like to suggest to my clients that instead of saying, I can't do it today because I don't have the 30 minutes or an hour to dedicate to this,
Mhm.
find 5 minutes in the morning or go on a walk for 10 minutes or 15 minutes after lunch, even if it's just around your office building. Try to start fitting these things in, but don't try to do too much. Don't try to make yourself go to the gym for an hour, 4 times a week. Try to see where you can fit in a workout for 10 minutes, maybe every morning or even every other morning. Um, and just see how that feels. A lot of us, we go from zero, sitting on the couch, I haven't done anything, to I want to now become somebody that exercises, and we bite off a little bit more than we can chew. So if you're somebody that wants to make that positive change, take the small step. Don't try to make that big leap because that is not sustainable. And there is a very, very high chance of you burning out and it just not fitting into your lifestyle. The same goes with cooking, or changing any part of your life. Don't decide that you're going to cook, a paleo diet moving forward every night for dinner. Try to, start cooking 2 or 3 times a week. Start to build it in as a habit and then grow from there. You really have to start small and then grow into it rather than trying to just completely change your lifestyle overnight.
Yeah, understood. Lovely. So, uh, you mentioned that, earlier that health isn't a barrier to the success, it's the foundation for it. And I think that's such an important shift in the mindset. So, how have you seen this play out in your own life or maybe the lives of your own clients? So, how does prioritizing wellness actually uh, enhance the career success rather than hinder it?
So I'll say for me, this one is probably the thing that I care about the most. And it's mostly because I have seen loved ones
Mhm.
really, lose
Mhm.
their whole sense of purpose because they got sick. So
Mhm.
something I care very much about is the preventative health side. Um, Kind of going back to how I got started in this, when I saw my loved one experiencing that autoimmune condition, they were young and they were healthy, and it seemed to come out of nowhere. And what I witnessed during that experience was overnight, you can go from being a healthy, happy, successful person, but if you do not have your health, it really changes everything. And this person, it ended up completely changing their life. They ended up having to leave their career for a less stressful job because it was causing their autoimmune condition to flare up so significantly.
Mhm.
Um, and kind of going back to when my dad was diagnosed with cancer, he had just actually retired. But he had spent his entire life working. He owned his own business.
Mhm.
And when you experience sickness like cancer, really it
Mhm.
puts everything into perspective. And for me, it certainly put everything in perspective. That was when I decided to leave my job, was when my dad got cancer. Um, because I knew that if I stayed in this stressful place, I may end up in the same boat. Um, I guess an example of how you can be successful um, when you prioritize your wellness. One of my first clients that I worked with, she worked for a very stressful, or she had a role in marketing, and she didn't really enjoy it. You know, it wasn't something that she loved. And so something that we did because she wasn't able to actually leave her job is we focused on the things that she really does enjoy, and tried to create sort of a creative outlet for her. What we ended up stumbling upon was the fact that if she could do anything she wanted, she really wanted to be a fitness instructor. She really loved yoga. She really loved running. And she ended up enrolling in a yoga teacher training program. And so while this added more work to her already busy schedule,
Mhm.
and you know, a lot of people don't want to sign up for things or commit to things like that because they think it's going to add more to their plate. It
Mhm.
ended up bringing this joy into her life because she was feeding something that loved her, that she really loved and like loved her back, rather than putting all of her efforts and spending all of her time focusing on this job. um, it kind of forced her to take a step back from work, stop raising her hand so much, and she still works there. But it gave her this opportunity to devote a lot of her time into something that she loved a little bit more and really lit her up. And it created a balance in her life that she was missing. Oftentimes, a lot of us, we feel burnt out. We feel like we are lacking energy because we are doing so much, but really we are not adding in those things that bring us joy and that actually give us energy. So I've found with clients, if I can sort of redirect them and help them focus on things that give them energy and happiness, it tends to take away some of that stress that they are feeling from their career.
Hmm. Exactly. Exactly. Wow, that's awesome. And uh, so, I mean, Madison, like, I have to say, this is such an eye-opening conversation. I think we all needed that reminder that our well-being isn't optional. It's very, very essential to the real success. And for anyone who is listening who wants to learn more about Madison's work and how to start prioritizing their health, and so where can they connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. I would suggest going to my Instagram. You can get to my website. I host webinars. You can get to my webinars from there as well. And that's Well with Madison.
Wow, lovely. Great. And to all of you tuning in, if this conversation has resonated with you, I challenge you to take just one step today to reclaim your wellness. Maybe it's setting better work boundaries, nourishing your body, or just taking a deep breath and uh, reminding yourself that success isn't just about the hustle, but it's all about feeling good while you achieve your goals. So if you have loved this episode, share it with a friend, family, or someone who actually need to hear this and tag us on social media, and let's start a movement where success is measured by our health, our joy, and our energy, not just by our bank accounts. So thanks for being here today, and until next time, stay well and stay inspired. So thank you so much. Hey Madison, it's a great conversation.
Thank you. Yeah, I enjoyed that.
Lovely, lovely. So Madison, like, will share this episode in next 2 to 3 days, and for that, I'll quickly need you to go to Podmatch once.
Okay.
Yeah, Podmatch and messages. So you will see a message from Healthy Waves, and you find a button called confirm.
Got it.
Yeah. So once you confirm, oh, you have confirmed it. Great, lovely. And yeah, and also we have total 14 podcast shows, and so out of which five shows I host, and rest of the shows are hosted by my co-hosts Sana, Anya, and Saima. So you'll love their